She did. She was supposed to do it.
We got a hard stop at 2:45 because they have to be coming.
Fly today. You're flat.
We're about to start. Everybody slide. Brother Coleman. Come on over to this side with us. We'll wait and see. All right. And good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm Mauli Davis with the Davis Bozeman Law Firm. We are here today because we have filed a suit, a federal lawsuit, 63 pages, federal lawsuit against the sheriff of Fulton County, Patrick Labatt, against detention officer Kurt Muhammad, as well as against the county itself, Fulton County. And we have with us family members of Dino Walker, a 33-year-old pretrial detainee who was killed, who was murdered in the Fulton County Jail back on September 22nd of 2022. And the family is here, his mother is here, his brother and the mother of his child are here as well. We also have joining us one of Atlanta's hardest fighting community activists, Marcus Coleman, who has consistently been out fighting, raising up his voice around the issues of the Fulton County Jail and people dying in the Fulton County Jail. And of course, my law partner, Harold Spence, will have an opportunity to talk about the case. We are here at the Southern Center for Human Rights because the Southern Center is a place that has worked diligently on trying to protect the lives, the human and civil rights of pretrial detainees in the Fulton County Jail for decades. So we want to be clear. This has been an ongoing fight to protect and preserve citizens who find themselves incarcerated in the jail. And it's very important to note that over 98% of the individuals who are in the jail have not been convicted. So these are not people who have been convicted of any crime. And if they were convicted, very few would even have a death sentence. So all of the conversations about if they didn't go to jail, then this wouldn't happen. It's just really unfortunate that people would not understand that everyone has constitutional rights that should be respected, and that has not happened here, and that's why we had to bring this accountability action, this lawsuit. So I would like for Marcus Coleman just to say a couple of words about the work that he has done and continues to do to advocate for brothers and sisters who are incarcerated in Fulton County, and the work that he's been doing just generally around police accountability and why he came. This mother asked him specifically to be here because she felt his spirit, and she knows that this is a fight that she needs support from all different facets of our community. And Marcus represents what we call the warrior class, those who step forward and fight in the interest of people who unfortunately can no longer fight for themselves. So, Brother Marcus Coleman.
Appreciate that, Counsel. First, publicly to the mother and to the mother of the descendant of Dino, thank you for inviting me. Being a part of coalitions or helping to guide families, is what I do, but it is somewhat rare to make sure that family makes sure that they want your voice there. And I had something scheduled with my son who was leaving off to go to college, but I came here because we had some energy that connected last time. I wanted to support you, so I really appreciate you for that. Whether it's Fulton County Jail, whether it's DeKalb County Jail, whether it's Clayton County Jail, I could even say Rockdale County Jail, there is a systemic problem within the jail system. In conjunction with this, I will say, government-assisted murder, and the reason I say that, I understand it's neglect by the guards. I mean, and neglect can be criminal. That's a whole other issue. I know we're here for something else as far as civil, but it's systemic. It has been 1 year, 2 weeks, and 4 days since the filing of since the announcement from the Department of Justice that they are investigating the Fulton County Jail. This murder happened prior to, but believe it has been one of a plethora of murders, of violations, of arrest by jailers that has sparked this investigation. When are we going to demand the results so we can see what's going on here? Matter of fact, maybe we're not seeing the results because the plethora of lawsuits that have been existing, and I'm sure when these results come out, it's going to be quite helpful to counsels. Or maybe because it's this charged up political climate. And we know that the former president, the only mugshot that's ever been taken, was booked at this jail. And maybe because of the affiliation of party politics, the people aren't getting to know what's going on in Fulton County Jail. I will close right here. I don't get in the pockets of families, but please stick them for everything that they got. I mean, the sheriff has been crying about the $300 million that was allowed it by the county to repair the jail, instead of the $1.6 billion he wants to rebuild it. So they got plenty of money over in Fulton County, where I reside. Last note, that plenty of money is taxpayers' dollars. That's actually my dollars, our family's dollars. Counselor, as many times as we've been on here in closing, man, I wish we could find a way to tie in these insurance companies that govern these counties, that govern these municipalities, and have some type of claim clause, Attorney Spence, where it would start coming out of their pockets. Because if it came out of the insurance companies' pockets that govern these municipalities, these police departments, we would see a severe drop in what we call police terrorism. So please, justice for this brother in the courtroom for civil, but we can't keep having families being paid civil dollars without there being some accountability. The president, I'm closing, the president recently signed legislation for new oversight as it relates to federal prisons that was sparked by Senator Ossoff, minus our brother Reverend Warnock, so another story. Even though this is not a federal facility, I will close with this. Mr. President and Madam Vice President, oversight minus accountability is dead.
Thank you, Marcus. I'd like for my law partner, Attorney Harold Spence, to walk us through the lawsuit that has been filed. And I want to lift up something that's very unique that I know he will elaborate on, is the filing of the lawsuit including the county. Oftentimes, the county, you can't make a case that keeps the county in. There have been so many deaths, so much destruction in this jail that we believe that this is a viable claim against the county, not just against the sheriff, not just against the deputy who walked away from his responsibility, from his post, but also the county as a whole for their role in Dino Walker's death. And so Attorney Spence, the architect of this lawsuit, as well as I believe, one of the best civil rights attorneys in the country, will walk you all through why we filed and what we filed and why it's necessary in this moment to have filed this lawsuit. Attorney Spence.
Thank you, Attorney Davis. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harold Spence, and I'm a partner at the Davis-Bozeman Law Firm. For years, we've heard the Sheriff of Fulton County and the Fulton County Commission talk about the litany of problems at the Fulton County Jail. Deplorable unsanitary conditions, violent conditions, homemade knives by the hundreds, if not thousands, injuries and deaths to detainees at the Fulton County Jail. But what we've also heard over the years is this game of political ping pong that they play, where the sheriff blames the county and its failure or refusal to fund everything he wants done at the jail for all of the problems. And then the county turns around and blames the sheriff, accusing him of mismanaging the money he does have to operate the jail. As we all know, typically the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and it does in this instance as well. Why did we sue Fulton County? We sued Fulton County because of the chronic underfunding of the jail. Dino Walker was killed as a result of a knife attack. How did that knife get into the jail? Well, we know how it got into the jail. The jail has a crumbling infrastructure. So detainees are taking pieces of the interior of the jail that are crumbling, and they're fashioning these knives or shivs and using them to harm other inmates. The Fulton County Commission is well aware of this. In October of 2021, Sheriff Labatt gave the commissioners a tour of the jail. They could see for themselves the deplorable conditions at the jail. They could see for themselves the crumbling infrastructure that inmates were using to craft these deadly weapons. In response, what did they do? Nothing. They simply told Sheriff Labatt that he should manage with the resources given. When you know that there is a problem that exists, when you know that there is a reasonable prospect of inmates or detainees suffering harm as a result of this problem, that you have the power to remedy to some extent by additional funding, and when you ignore the problem and do nothing, that is what the law calls deliberate indifference. And we believe that it was this deliberate indifference by Fulton County that is the moving force behind the violation of the constitutional rights of detainees like Dino Walker. Because we all know that a jail facility has a constitutional obligation to protect the safety and well-being of those it houses. Now, with respect to Sheriff Labatt, he says, I don't have the money to do what I need to do. I know what I need to do, I just don't have the money to do it. That argument seems to have some merit on the surface, but the merit of that argument is only on the surface, because it's actually not true. Let's talk about this inmate welfare fund that you'll read about in the lawsuit that Fulton County had. Fulton County had an inmate welfare fund that had several $1 million in it. This money came from commissary purchases by inmates and payment for telephone calls. There is a county ordinance that prescribes what this inmate welfare fund can be used for. It is used for the benefit of those detained in the Fulton County Jail. Under the ordinance, the sheriff, the chief jailer, and the chair of the county commission are supposed to form a committee that is to superintend these funds to make sure that they are used for the benefit of the detainees at the jail. Sheriff Labatt took office in January of 2021. Toward the end of 2023, he admitted that he had never heard of this committee, that the committee that was supposed to oversee these funds had never once met. When County Commission Chair Rob Pitts was asked about this fund, he said, well, I've never heard of it, but it sounds like a good idea. So this committee that was supposed to superintend these funds to make sure that they were used for the benefit of inmates never met. But what did Sheriff Labatt use these funds for? He used them as almost a personal slush fund to fund all kinds of projects in which he had an interest. Projects that had nothing to do with the Fulton County Jail, inmates, or detainees. Nothing to do with the betterment of their welfare. So you'll see in the lawsuit that we've identified a number of expenditures by Sheriff Labatt that appear to have nothing to do with inmate welfare. This comes to over $3 million. You'll see things like the purchase of 9 Dodge Chargers for $309,000. The purchase of extra uniforms for detention officers, $509,000. A sheriff's staff luncheon, and I'm assuming that the detainees weren't invited to the sheriff's staff luncheon, $800. Gift cards for the staff when they purchased honey baked hams to the tune of almost $40,000. A turkey giveaway to the city of South Fulton for $5,000. Flowers for $2,600. and you see expenditure after expenditure, face painting, DJ services, and there is even a reimbursement for a lost ring in the amount of $4,138.78. I'm assuming that that wasn't paid to one of the detainees. So if Sheriff Labatt had used this money in the way it was supposed to be used, what could he have done with it? He could have done what federal authorities told him that he should do in July of 2013. Quickly, 2 days before Dino Walker was killed, Sheriff Labatt sent a letter to federal authorities asking for technical assistance concerning the jail. In July of 2023, a group of representatives from the federal government came down and met with Sheriff Labatt. They made several recommendations after meeting with him and touring the jail. One of the things they told him that he could do was to go cell by cell, and where you see the crumbling infrastructure of a cell that could be used to fashion a weapon, repair that part of the crumbling infrastructure. Use that money to make repairs. Did Sheriff Labatt ever do that? No, he didn't. While he decried the lack of funds from the county commission. So what you have here is a conspiracy of indifference by both Sheriff Labatt and Fulton County. And this lawsuit is filed this day in behalf of Dino Walker, but really in behalf of countless detainees in the Fulton County Jail who each day live in filthy conditions. You know about the detainee who died as a result of a bed bug infestation of his body. You know about the dangerous conditions. In 2023, there were nearly 1,000 stabbings in the Fulton County Jail. So even though Dino Walker was killed in 2022, this is a problem that is not abating. It is a problem that is escalating. So we hope that with this lawsuit, we can gain some measure of accountability. And along with the federal investigation of the jail and Fulton County. And keep in mind that the federal investigation by the Department of Justice is not just of the jail, it's of Fulton County as well. So we hope to hold these twin entities accountable so that they can demonstrate the constitutional care and concern for detainees like Dino Walker that the law requires them to demonstrate. And I look forward to working with my law partner, Maoli Davis, to hold both Fulton County and Sheriff Labatt responsible and financially liable for the death of Dino Walker, and hope that this lawsuit corrects or helps correct the deplorable conditions in the Fulton County Jail.
We have with us family of Dino Walker. This is his mother, brother, and the mother of his 4-year-old son. And they stand here in a way that too many families have stood, wanting answers, longing for their loved one, and really believing that this was absolutely preventable. And so I just have asked, this is a difficult time for them. I've just asked Mom to step forward, Chandra Tolan to step forward and just share some thoughts and reflections about Dino. As you can see, he was a loving son, father, and friend. Ms. Tolan, if you could spell your name for them too.
Chandra Tolan, CHANDRATOLAND. I'm the mother of Dino Walker. There are no words to express how much I love and miss my son. I spoke with my son at 6 o'clock on September 22nd, and 8:30 he was deceased. I received a phone call at 5 o'clock the next morning, a phone call to tell me that my son had been murdered. My son laid in his blood from that time until 3 a.m. that morning before the coroners came and removed him from the floor. I was told that the officer that was responsible for the detainees in that particular part of the jail had left his post. and left all those men unattended. The gentleman that murdered my son was already in Fulton County Jail for a murder. My son should not have even been in his company.
Thank you. And what we know is that Dino Walker is spelled out in the lawsuit. What we know is that Dino Walker had been previously attacked and that no real changes were made. He was attacked by multiple inmates back in April, and they really did not secure him, and that is part of what led ultimately to his murder. And what Mom is referring to is that when this officer left his post, there was a call made by an inmate buzzing and saying, hey, this man is down in a pool of blood, bleeding. It took an hour before that individual that was assigned to be on that floor got back to that floor to find him in a pool of blood. By then, a detention officer from another part of the jail had already made their way there. That's how ridiculous this is that someone who is responsible on a floor where you have people charged with some very serious crimes would leave the floor for any reason and be gone. And when he's told to come back, his response is, stand by. Stand by? What, stand by when people's lives are in jeopardy, again, is a reflection of a complete and utter failure in the safety and the civil rights and human rights in jail. And so we're here to answer any questions that you might have. We intend on continuing to press forward with this. It's unfortunate that we even had to file this lawsuit. And the only way we get here is when there is no response from various governmental entities. We are required to put them on notice, to say of our intent to bring a suit. And in this instance, we did just that. And I believe some of you all were there when we announced our intention. No response at all. That, again, is a reflection of their concern about Dino Walker and his family, is that even in death, they're still stand by is their response. Stand by. But we're done standing by. We're standing and moving forward. And with the help of institutions like the Southern Center for Human Rights, who have continued to raise the call and the cry for justice inside of this jail, and organizers like Marcus Coleman, this won't continue to happen year after year after year.
I know it's difficult to put a number on the life, but have you asked for a specific amount of money?
No. In our lawsuits, we never do. We will allow the informed conscience of a jury to decide what all of that time of him laying on the floor, gurgling in his own blood without anyone rendering any aid, that kind of pain, that kind of anguish, no person should have to experience. We believe a jury will get that, will understand that, and they won't allow this continued finger pointing, as Attorney Spence spelled out. It won't be, well, it's the county's fault, it's the sheriff's fault, or if it's this individual. All of them are responsible. All of them are the reason that this father will not be there for this son as he grows up. Won't be there because of their absolute indifference, deliberate indifference.
What is the status of that guard? Is it Mohammed?
As far as we know, he's still working, still employed. As far as we know.
So he never.
We have not received any word that he was disciplined in any way. In fact, when we first announced this, I think the response was we were just kind of giving half the story. I think we even provided the entire document where it showed what was said, when it was said, and that he left his post. So how they can defend that, Again, it's another one of those instances where someone is trying to defend the indefensible.
What's that documentation? I must have missed that. How you knew that this guard left his post, and how you knew that, it sounds like Dino was in the same area the first time he was stabbed and the second time he was.
Attorney Spence, you want to share?
There is a complete timeline that sheriff office employees prepared, and it chronicles minute by minute what happened on September 22nd, 2022, and who was where at what time, who was off of post at what time, how long they were gone. And so that's a document that we have that we can provide to you.
We will provide to you, and we encourage you, confront the commissioners, the sheriff. They've got to answer at some point. They can't keep just pointing at the sheriff. They've got to decide how they will speak to this family. How will they address this family? And it's just sad that it takes us filing a lawsuit for them to even address this family in any way. Now they will have to respond.
Is it accurate that Dino was on 7 North the first time he was attacked in April 2?
He was on 7 South. He was in the area. So he was on the same floor, but it's South and North. And so it was our position, and based on our investigation, that he should have been removed from that floor. There's a lot of communication, even though they are separate. There's a lot of communication that goes back and forth, as you can imagine, on the same floor. And we have had an opportunity to interview people who were on that floor, who saw the attack in April, and they were, dumbfounded, to be quite frank, as to why he was not taken off of that floor when clearly there were some people who wanted to do him harm.
What responsibility then, not to minimize walking away from the post, but what responsibility does this lawsuit put on that guard? If the sheriff's department left him on the job, does the lawsuit say that there was malice on his part? Is there some sort of blame that he knew this was going to happen?
Well, there is blame on the part of the guard. And you'll see in the lawsuit, we've said that he failed to adhere to what the law calls a ministerial duty. And a ministerial duty is one that is specific, absolute, and simple, absolute, and definite. And the guard, under the rules of the jail, had to make rounds, had to be at a certain place at a certain time, and he failed to adhere to those rules. In July of 2023, when Sheriff Labatt spoke with federal authorities, he told them, and they wrote in the report of that site visit to the Fulton County Jail, that there was one detention officer responsible for monitoring 6 housing zones, and you'd have about 200 detainees within those 6 housing zones. So in this instance, we know that what you had that day, you had about 200 detainees who were out of their cells, and after Defendant Muhammad left his post, there was no one there. And so you can imagine, and why did he say that he left? He said that he had to take the head count to his watch commander. So if that was his routine, to do the head count, leave the premises and take the head count to his watch commander, who knew that that was the routine? The detainees. So they were provided with an easy opportunity to do harm to Dino Walker or to engage in whatever other mischief they chose to engage in.
Was it Officer Muhammad that came back after an hour or another officer?
It was Officer Muhammad. So there was another officer that was called from their post to the area that Dino Walker was laying. And then eventually Officer Muhammad physically made it back to the area. Because remember, a lot of this is captured on video. And so you can see, and that's part of why it's so detailed, when he actually comes back onto the place that he was supposed to be from the very beginning.
Is this stabbing on video?
They have not provided that to us, but we believe that it is.
Do you know what the standard is for, right, so Dino and everyone else in the jail is under the county's custody. So the county has to protect those that are within the county's custody. Do you know what standard you feel like you have to meet to prove that the county, that they were not taking care of their inmates? What's that threshold and why do you feel like you're meeting that?
Well, the standard that we have to demonstrate is deliberate indifference. And that is that they knew that there was a problem, that there was a serious likelihood of substantial harm that could occur to inmates. And despite this knowledge, they failed to act. So that is the standard we have to meet in this lawsuit. And we believe that it is a standard we can meet. We think that the defense of finger pointing and throwing up your hands saying that I can't do anything because I don't have the money, then why run for sheriff? Correct. Why be sheriff if there's nothing that you can do? If you're saying that I can't do anything unless you give me this money, and if you don't give it to me, the status quo will prevail. You'll still have injuries and deaths. You'll have thousands of makeshift knives constructed in the jail. Then why be the sheriff? Let somebody else do it who might say, well, I think there's a better way. I think there is a way. You can't say there's no way, but say, I still want to be the sheriff and just wait until the county gives me more money. And if you're the county, you can't sit around and do nothing in the face of deaths. You can't engage in finger pointing while individuals under your charge are being maimed, injured, and are dying.
Do you know how many deaths there were in 2022, Dino's year?
I do not.
We have 69 from, I believe, over 60 deaths from 2009 to 2022. That's listed in the lawsuit. So if you go through the lawsuit there, we think that we have quite a bit of information and evidence as it relates to everyone knowing how dangerous this was and them turning a complete blind eye to it and allowing this to happen and these conditions to continue to exist. Thank you all.
Thank you.